May 3rd, 2026. Somewhere along the front line, a Russian soldier moved across open ground believing he still had time. There was no artillery barrage, no fighter jet overhead, no warning siren. For a few moments, everything looked normal. Then something spotted him. Within minutes, the situation changed completely. Across Ukraine's battlefields, scenes like this are becoming increasingly common. Soldiers disappear. Vehicles never reach their destination. Supply routes suddenly go silent. Expensive military systems vanish after operating for only a short time. Something is happening on this battlefield that military planners around the world are studying very closely. And it raises an unsettling question. What happens when nowhere is truly hidden anymore? Before we begin, make sure to subscribe to Military Force for more in-depth analysis of modern warfare and global security. One of the most important changes taking place in Ukraine is that drones are no longer being used as isolated weapons. What is emerging instead is a complete battlefield system where different types of unmanned aircraft perform different tasks and support one another throughout the fight. Recent footage from the front provides a glimpse of that transformation. In one case, Ukrainian forces were seen operating a heavy drone equipped with a machine gun. The aircraft hovered above a combat zone and fired directly toward Russian positions below. At first glance, the goal might appear simple. Yet the purpose is often not to eliminate large numbers of troops. The real objective is to pin soldiers down, force them into cover, and create an opening for friendly units moving nearby. Military planners have spent decades using attack helicopters to achieve exactly that effect. During conflicts from Vietnam to Iraq, helicopter gunships were often used to suppress enemy positions before ground forces advanced. Ukraine is now attempting something similar, but with unmanned systems that cost only a fraction of what a helicopter requires to purchase, operate, and maintain. The appearance of machine gun drones also reflects a broader trend that has accelerated over the past year. Ukrainian forces are no longer relying on one universal platform. Instead, they are expanding a growing family of specialized aircraft, each designed for a specific mission. Some drones search for targets. Others carry explosives. Some drop munitions from above. Others interfere with communications and navigation systems. Together, they create a network that can monitor, strike, and disrupt enemy forces across a wide area. Reconnaissance drones remain the foundation of this structure. Their mission is simple but extremely important. They search roads, tree lines, buildings, supply routes, and assembly areas. Once a target is identified, information can be passed almost immediately to other operators. This constant search for movement has become one of the defining features of the war. Alongside them are FPV attack drones. These small aircraft have become famous because of their ability to strike vehicles, equipment, and personnel with remarkable precision. Their relatively low cost allows large numbers to be deployed, creating pressure across multiple sectors at the same time. A target that might once have required artillery support can now be engaged by a drone operator sitting many miles away. Another category includes heavy bomber drones. These platforms carry larger payloads and can attack fortified positions, temporary bases, ammunition storage sites, or concentrations of troops. Their role is different from FPV systems, but they contribute to the same objective, keeping constant pressure on Russian forces both near and behind the front line. Electronic warfare drones are becoming increasingly important as well. Modern combat is heavily dependent on communication, navigation, and data exchange. Any aircraft capable of disrupting those functions can reduce an opponent's ability to coordinate forces and react quickly to changing conditions. In many cases, the battle for information is becoming just as important as the battle for territory. Taken together, these developments suggest that Ukraine now views drones as more than a supporting capability. They are gradually becoming a separate combat branch with their own tactics, missions, and operational structure. What began as an emergency adaptation early in the conflict is evolving into a core element of battlefield planning. The strategic implications are significant. Missions that once required expensive aircraft, large artillery batteries, or complex support structures can increasingly be performed by systems that are cheaper, easier to replace, and available in much larger numbers. This shift is forcing military observers around the world to reconsider long-held assumptions about the future of warfare. For the soldiers on the ground, however, the experience is far more personal. The distant sound of an engine overhead can mean many different things. It could be a reconnaissance platform quietly observing movement. It could be an attack drone searching for an opening. It could be a system preparing to guide another strike. Often, those below cannot immediately tell which type is above them. They only know that someone may be watching. But the real revolution is not the drone itself. It is what happens when every drone becomes connected to another. The most important advantage Ukraine has developed is not a new drone, a new weapon, or a new vehicle. It is speed. More specifically, it is the ability to shorten the time between finding a target and attacking it. On today's battlefield, a delay of 10 or 15 minutes can be the difference between success and failure. Ukraine's growing drone network is designed to remove as much of that delay as possible. The process often begins with a reconnaissance drone operating high above the battlefield. Its operators spend hours scanning roads, fields, forests, ruined buildings, and defensive positions. Their mission is simple: find movement, find activity, find anything that does not belong. Once a target is identified, the information does not sit in a report waiting for approval. Instead, it can be transmitted immediately to nearby units and drone operators who are already waiting for a task. This is where the second stage begins. Coordinates, video feeds, and target details are passed in real time. In many cases, an FPV operator receives the information within moments. The target may be a vehicle moving toward the front, a group of soldiers carrying supplies, or a team attempting to establish a new position. By the time those on the ground realize they have been observed, an attack may already be underway. The final stage is often the fastest. An FPV drone launches, follows the provided location, and closes the distance rapidly. Instead of waiting for artillery batteries to calculate firing solutions or hire headquarters to approve a strike package, the response can happen almost immediately. What once required several separate systems now happens through a chain that is increasingly compressed into a matter of minutes. This matters because traditional armies were built around multiple layers of command. Information moved upward before decisions moved downward. While that approach still exists, Ukraine has spent years adapting to a battlefield where opportunities appear and disappear very quickly. Drone units now operate in an environment where speed often matters more than firepower. A target that escapes today may never be seen again tomorrow. Recent combat footage illustrates this pattern repeatedly. Infantry moving along open routes are identified before reaching their destination. Soldiers attempting to conceal themselves in tree lines are located from above. Motorcycles traveling toward frontline positions are tracked across open terrain. Small supply teams carrying ammunition and equipment become visible during movement. Even isolated groups operating far from major combat zones can attract attention if they remain exposed for too long. The result is a battlefield that is becoming increasingly transparent. During earlier wars, large areas existed where troops could move with limited risk of detection. Today, that space is shrinking. Drones equipped with cameras, thermal sensors, and live video transmission are creating an environment where movement itself becomes a form of exposure. Military analysts have started describing this phenomenon in different ways, but one idea captures it especially well. The battlefield has become searchable. Just as people use search engines to find information online, drone operators are constantly searching for signs of activity across vast areas. Every vehicle leaves tracks. Every supply run creates patterns. Every relocation generates clues that can be observed from above. This is changing the nature of survival. Many Russian soldiers are not necessarily being defeated because the enemy possesses overwhelming firepower at a specific location. Instead, they are often discovered first. Once detected, the growing network of reconnaissance and strike assets can begin working together. In many situations, the most dangerous moment is not when an attack starts. It is when a drone quietly identifies a position without being noticed. That reality is creating a powerful psychological effect across the front. Running across open ground no longer guarantees escape. Remaining still does not always provide protection. A tree line that once offered concealment may now serve only as a temporary hiding place. Troops understand that observation can happen at any moment, and uncertainty itself becomes part of the pressure. The impact extends beyond individual soldiers. Commanders must consider how every movement will appear from above. Logistics teams must think differently about transportation routes. Reinforcements must plan around the possibility of aerial observation. The simple act of moving people and supplies has become far more complicated than it was earlier in the war. And as Ukraine continues to make the battlefield more transparent, Russian forces are being pushed toward a difficult choice. They can continue using traditional methods and accept greater risk, or they can redesign how troops, equipment, and supplies reach the front line. That adaptation is already underway, and it is changing the appearance of the battlefield in unexpected ways. Russia understands the drone threat, and the behavior of its forces on the battlefield is changing in ways that would have seemed unusual only a few years ago. Across multiple sectors of the front, commanders are increasingly adjusting their tactics because moving large formations has become far more dangerous than it once was. One of the clearest signs of this shift is the growing use of motorcycles. Throughout 2025 and into 2026, combat footage has shown Russian troops using two-wheeled vehicles to move personnel toward frontline positions. At first glance, this may look surprising. Modern armies are usually associated with armored vehicles, mechanized infantry, and protected transport. Yet the reality of today's battlefield is forcing different choices. The reason is simple. Large armored formations are easier to detect. A tank column produces noise, dust, heat signatures, and visible movement. Once spotted, it can attract artillery fire, drone attacks, or other forms of engagement. A motorcycle, by contrast, presents a much smaller target and can move quickly across open terrain. It offers little protection, but it also attracts less attention. Similar patterns can be seen with all-terrain vehicles and light transport platforms. These machines allow troops to move rapidly between positions while reducing their exposure time. Instead of concentrating dozens of soldiers inside a few vehicles, forces can spread personnel across multiple platforms. This does not eliminate risk, but it reduces the possibility of losing a large number of troops in a single strike. Civilian vehicles are appearing more frequently as well. Pickup trucks, vans, and other non-military transports have become part of battlefield logistics in some areas. Their use reflects the same calculation. A less obvious vehicle may blend into the environment more effectively and draw less attention than a traditional armored platform. In a war increasingly shaped by aerial observation, appearance can matter almost as much as protection. The change is not limited to transportation. Infantry tactics are evolving too. Instead of advancing in large groups, troops often move in smaller teams. They spread out across wider areas, use separate routes, and attempt to avoid creating obvious patterns that can be identified from above. A formation that might have consisted of dozens of soldiers earlier in the conflict is now often broken into much smaller elements. Recent footage illustrates this trend clearly. Small groups carrying supplies move independently rather than as part of larger convoys. Trucks frequently transport limited numbers of personnel instead of operating at full capacity. Individual riders on motorcycles can be seen heading toward forward positions. These methods may appear inefficient compared with traditional military doctrine, but they are designed for survival in an environment where observation is nearly constant. This adaptation highlights an important strategic trade-off. Russia is increasingly exchanging protection for survivability. During earlier conflicts, armored vehicles were valued because they shielded troops from enemy fire. Today, those same vehicles can become magnets for surveillance and attack. The very systems designed to keep soldiers safe may also increase the chance of being noticed. That creates one of the most striking paradoxes of the war. Tanks were built to protect the people inside them. Infantry fighting vehicles were created to move troops safely through dangerous areas. Armored personnel carriers were designed to reduce casualties during movement. Yet on a battlefield dominated by aerial surveillance, these platforms sometimes become easier to locate than the soldiers themselves. As a result, the nature of risk is changing. In the past, a commander might have worried about losing an entire mechanized unit during a major engagement. Today, losses are often distributed across smaller incidents occurring throughout the day. Instead of catastrophic destruction involving multiple vehicles at once, there is a steady accumulation of casualties caused by repeated strikes against dispersed targets. For individual soldiers, this produces a strange reality. A motorcycle offers almost no physical protection. A pickup truck provides very little defense against explosives. An ATV leaves its operator completely exposed. Yet these platforms may still increase the chances of reaching a destination because they reduce visibility and shorten exposure time. In some situations, speed becomes more valuable than armor. That reality would have sounded absurd to many military planners before this war began. The idea that a motorcycle could sometimes be safer than an armored vehicle challenges decades of conventional thinking. Yet combat footage continues to show how rapidly battlefield conditions are changing. Still, these adaptations address only the symptoms of a larger challenge. Moving differently may reduce exposure, but it does not solve the deeper problem. Russian forces are still operating under constant observation, and Ukraine is increasingly targeting the systems that allow an army to communicate, coordinate, and respond. That is where the next phase of this story begins. Ukraine is no longer focused only on the soldiers it can see. Increasingly, it is targeting the systems that allow an army to function in the first place. Across the battlefield, Ukrainian drone operators are spending more effort hunting communication infrastructure, command locations, supply facilities, staging areas, and radar installations. The goal is not simply to destroy equipment. The goal is to make the entire military network operate more slowly and less effectively. This reflects an important reality of modern warfare. Armies do not fight with weapons alone. They fight with information and logistics. Every order must be transmitted. Every unit must know where friendly forces are located. Every vehicle requires fuel. Every artillery crew needs ammunition. Every frontline position depends on a constant flow of supplies. When those connections are disrupted, combat effectiveness begins to decline, even if large numbers of troops remain available. Recent footage provides several examples of this approach. Ukrainian operators have repeatedly targeted communication antennas positioned behind frontline areas. These installations may not appear dramatic compared with tanks or artillery systems, yet they perform a critical function. They allow information to move between units, headquarters, and support elements. When communication becomes unreliable, commanders often lose the ability to react quickly to changing conditions. Supply depots have also become frequent targets. Ammunition storage sites, fuel points, and temporary stockpiles represent valuable objectives because they support operations across entire sectors of the front. A destroyed warehouse affects more than a single unit. It can impact multiple formations operating nearby. Every truck forced to travel farther for resupply creates additional pressure throughout the system. Staging areas are another important focus. Before an assault begins, troops are often gathered at temporary locations where they receive instructions, equipment, and final preparations. These sites allow commanders to organize forces before committing them to combat. However, they also create opportunities for surveillance. If a staging area is identified and attacked, an operation can be disrupted before it even starts. Perhaps the most significant effort involves radar installations. Throughout 2026, several videos have shown Ukrainian drones striking Russian radar sites in different sectors of the battlefield. Some attacks required multiple drones to complete the mission, while others achieved success with a single precise hit. Although these systems often receive less public attention than tanks or aircraft, their military value is enormous. Radar serves as the eyes of the battlefield. It helps detect aircraft, drones, missiles, and other aerial threats. It provides warning before an attack arrives. It contributes to air defense operations and supports broader situational awareness. Without reliable radar coverage, commanders may receive less information about what is happening around them and above them. That is why repeated strikes against radar infrastructure carry significance beyond the immediate damage. Each destroyed site potentially creates a gap in the detection network. Even a temporary reduction in coverage can complicate defensive planning and increase uncertainty for nearby units. In a conflict where information often determines survival, losing visibility can become a serious disadvantage. Communication systems face similar challenges. Relay stations, antennas, and supporting equipment form the backbone of command and control. Orders move through these networks. Intelligence flows through these networks. Requests for support depend on these networks. When those links are interrupted, decision-making slows and coordination becomes more difficult. This reveals the deeper logic behind Ukraine's targeting strategy. The objective is not simply to remove individual soldiers from the battlefield. It is to attack the speed at which the Russian military can observe, decide, and respond. Every destroyed antenna, every damaged command point, and every lost radar installation increases friction within the system. Small delays may appear insignificant at first, but they accumulate over time and can affect operations across an entire region. For troops near the front, the consequences may not always be obvious. A soldier occupying a trench may have no idea that a communication node several miles away has been destroyed. A vehicle crew may not know that a radar station supporting their sector has gone offline. Yet those losses can still shape events around them. Requests may take longer to process. Warnings may arrive later. Information may become less accurate. This creates one of the most unsettling realities of modern warfare. The network supporting a unit can begin to disappear long before the people at the front fully understand what is happening. By the time the effects become visible, the damage may already be done. And as important as these targets are, Ukraine's strategy becomes even more consequential when the focus shifts towards some of Russia's most expensive and strategically valuable military systems. One of the most surprising developments of this war is how frequently air defense systems themselves are becoming targets. Throughout the conflict, Ukrainian drone operators have repeatedly released footage showing strikes against Russian Pantsir and Tor systems. These are not ordinary battlefield assets. They are among the very systems designed to protect troops and equipment from threats coming from the sky. Both Pantsir and Tor were created to detect and destroy aircraft, missiles, helicopters, and drones. In theory, they should be among the most dangerous opponents that any unmanned aircraft can face. Yet recent combat footage tells a different story. In several cases, Ukrainian operators were able to locate these systems while they were deployed in fields or operating near frontline sectors, and precision strikes followed shortly afterward. This creates an important contradiction. Weapons built to defend against aerial threats are increasingly being found and attacked by those same threats. Military analysts continue debating the reasons behind this trend, but several factors appear repeatedly. Air defense systems cannot be everywhere at once, and their coverage areas remain limited. A single vehicle can only observe and engage within a certain range. Beyond that zone, vulnerabilities begin to appear. Another challenge comes from saturation. Modern battlefields contain large numbers of reconnaissance platforms, attack drones, and electronic warfare assets operating simultaneously. Even highly capable systems can struggle when they are forced to monitor multiple directions at the same time. Continuous surveillance also increases the risk of detection. The longer a vehicle remains active, the greater the chance that its location will eventually be discovered. Deployment itself creates additional exposure. Air defense crews often need to move, reposition, and establish temporary operating locations. During those moments, they can become vulnerable to observation from above. Resource limitations may also play a role, especially when valuable systems must cover large areas with limited support. The strategic importance of these losses extends far beyond the destruction of individual vehicles. Every disabled air defense system can create a potential gap in the defensive network. Even temporary openings may increase freedom of action for reconnaissance aircraft and strike platforms operating nearby. As those gaps appear, pressure on the remaining systems often grows. And that reality leads directly to the larger transformation now unfolding across the battlefield, where the balance between detection, survival, and decision-making is being rewritten in real time. The story comes back to a simple moment. A soldier is spotted from above, coordinates are passed, and a strike follows shortly after. What we have seen across Ukraine is no longer a collection of separate drone attacks. It is a growing system that combines surveillance, communication, and precision strikes into a constant source of pressure. Russian forces continue adapting, yet each adjustment highlights how difficult life has become under persistent observation. More importantly, the most valuable weapon may no longer be the drone itself, but the ability to maintain awareness across the battlefield at all times. Military planners from Europe to the Pacific are watching closely. If detection increasingly leads to engagement within minutes, are we witnessing the end of true battlefield concealment? If you enjoyed deep military analysis, subscribe to Military Force and join us for our next report.